Alright, hold on to your stonks because the recession is here again, and everyone is throwing their name into the hat to try to predict exactly when one is gonna happen, but the truth is, no one knows, and trying to predict when it's gonna happen is like trying to guess which way the wind is gonna blow at any given second, which is mathematically possible, but only if you could freeze time and take every single variable into account. So let's freeze time right now. I'm gonna leave that right there. That's not a real AP, but smash the like button because that took me so long to figure out how to control with my mind. Now, in the next 12 months, the odds of a recession are predicted to be anywhere from a low of 35% from banks like Goldman Sachs to a high of 70% from other independent sources. Now, my question is, what factors do economists look at to try to predict that number? It turns out there are 5 things we could look at right now that have been historically pretty accurate in helping us figure that out. And if we can combine all of them, it'll give us a clearer picture of exactly when a recession could happen. And if one does happen, I'll share with you in this video exactly how I'm gonna start investing. But for now, let's unfreeze time and start the video. Hi, my name is Andrei Jikh. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the magic of the time stone, or video editing. One of my friends actually recently asked me an interesting question. He said, what is one conspiracy theory you believe? And I'd love to hear what yours is, but I told him, I feel like if you ever become a multi-billionaire or the leader of a powerful country, somebody just kind of takes you to the side and says, hey, congrats on your success, but let me show you how things are really run around here. I'm probably wrong, but that's probably one of the main reasons why people blame presidents for recessions. Thanks, Biden. But the truth is, the president has very little power to actually cause a recession. Instead, here are 5 things that can. And the first one is interest rates. Now, interest rates are the cost to borrow money. And if it's cheap to borrow money because interest rates are at 0 like we've had since the pandemic started, then everyone goes out to borrow money to buy cars and houses, and corporations take out loans for acquisitions so they can buy companies and so they can run companies day to day for operational costs. Now, right now, our central bank, Papa Powell, wants to increase the rate at 0.25% every few months, which is hopefully slow enough to not cause a recession, but some people are still worried that increasing right now could still increase our odds. So the question is, if increasing rates increases the chances for a recession, then why would we ever increase the interest rates? How about we always keep them at 0 and not go into a recession? How about that? And that's because of 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is inflation. We dropped the federal fund rate to 0, and that's why the 2020 recession was the shortest one on record. It lasted only 2 months. But the downside is if you keep the rates low for too long, then gas prices go higher than some people's credit scores. I'm just kidding. It's not because of interest rates. Thanks, Putin. Reason number 2 why we can't keep rates low forever is because technically we can't. Now, the Federal Reserve can control what's called the federal fund rate, which is the cost for banks to borrow money from other banks, but we can't control the interest rate in the bond market because the market controls the market. It's people buying and selling bonds every day. And because Papa Powell wants to increase our rates slowly, I don't think interest rates are a cause for concern, but it's still a risk, so I'll add 10% to the chances of a recession happening because of interest rates. The second variable is super closely related to interest rates, and this one is the yield on the 10-year Treasury bond. Now, this is called the yield curve, and it has reliably predicted 10 of the last 11 recessions since 1955. It's only been wrong 1 time. Now, this is what's called a forward-looking indicator, meaning there's a huge change to this variable before something bad happens. It's super easy to understand, and here's just one chart you need to look at. Anytime you see this specific chart drop below this horizontal line, that's when you'll see a recession. And a recession, by the way, is this gray area. Anytime you see gray areas, that's a recession. So anytime it drops below that horizontal line, we get a recession. And here's how this actually happens. When investors get scared, they start to buy the 10-year Treasury bond because they want to preserve the value of their money in case of a recession. But if enough investors start doing that because they're scared, then it drives the price of this bond higher and its interest rate or its yield lower. And this just means that in the short term, investors believe that there's going to be a recession. And remember, whenever there's a recession, how do you stimulate the economy? We learned in 2019, it's by dropping rates to 0 and making it cheap to borrow money. So all of this means is that in the short term, it becomes more profitable to hold on to short-term bonds than long-term bonds, which is a flip. there's an inversion, and that's a very bad sign. The last time the yield curve inverted was in August of 2019, and sure enough, there was a recession. Now, so far, the yield on the 10-year Treasury bond is floating somewhere around 2%, and the federal fund rate at 0.25%. So on the surface, it looks like it's dangerously close to dropping below that horizontal line, but personally, I don't think it will. I don't think we're gonna invert, but maybe that's because I'm gullible and I believe what Papa Powell has been telling us. Remember, for the last year, he's been money printer go brrr, buying mortgage-backed securities and treasury bonds. And he's told us that he's gonna start offloading or selling those assets. And whenever you start selling a lot of something, like bonds, the price of them will go down, but their yields will go up, which will hopefully decrease the odds of inverting that yield curve. But that's still a risk, especially considering what the conflict that's going on in Europe, and that makes markets volatile. So it could happen, so I'm just gonna add another 10% to the risk of a recession, bringing the grand total so far to 20%. The third thing we can look at is the real wage growth. Now, household wealth reached $150 trillion for the first time ever, which is a 14.4% increase from last year, thanks to the stock market and asset values growing at the fastest pace since 1984, thanks to inflation, and of course, thanks to Dogecoin making people millionaires, which is all awesome, except millennials own just 6% of all that wealth, or roughly $10 trillion. The average person got a boost of 4.7% to their annual pay. That translates to $1.46 per hour, which, if you compare it against the CPI data, inflation, that was 7%, meaning the real wage growth was negative 2.3%, and anytime you get a negative wage growth, that increases the odds of a recession. Bank of America also released a study that shows if real wage growth is negative until the summer of this year, the odds of a recession would increase substantially. This is because when you notice that your income is going down, you say, wait a minute, even though I got a pay raise, I'm still spending way more money than I used to. I better cut back and start saving. And anytime you cut back spending, you contribute to the slowed growth of the economy. Also, banks have finally admitted that inflation will probably be high this year, high enough to outpace wage growth, which means the real wage growth will probably again this year be negative. Now, the truth is, wage growth and inflation by themselves can't predict a recession, but there's still a risk. So I'll add another 10% to our recession total. And the fourth thing that could predict a recession is a shock to commodity prices. This is kind of crazy, but history shows us anytime the price of a commodity like oil goes up above its average, the higher the likelihood of a recession is. Now, the word to remember here is something called Brent crude oil. Brent crude oil is a light crude oil, which is a combination of oils from 19 different oil fields from the North Sea, and other fun useless facts for $200, Alex. Anytime the price of Brent crude oil goes up above $104, there has been a recession. Check this out. This has been the case in 1970, 1975, 1980, 1990, 2000, 2008, and again potentially in 2022. Notice the time period though between the recessions is almost perfectly 10 years. Now there's two main reasons why the price of oil is so good at predicting recessions. And the first reason is that obviously if you notice that it costs $100 to fill up your car, you're gonna start to save more money. Expensive petroleum. I thought it was a good dad joke. But obviously, if you spend less money, you're gonna contribute less to the growth of the overall economy, increasing the odds of a recession. The second reason is because business-to-business transportation costs also go up, and this affects small businesses the most. And if you decrease their profit margins, then you increase the odds of a recession. Now, even though we've had oil become so expensive, it's still, right now, not a good predictor of a recession, and here's why. We have an extremely strong labor market, household net worth has reached $150 trillion, wages are the highest they've ever been, strong consumer demand and consumer spending, and pretty decent corporate profits if you trust the numbers. So the truth is, a rise in oil prices doesn't necessarily mean a recession is coming, but it's still a risk, so I'll add another 10% here, bringing the grand total to 40%. Now there's one more thing that I think is really useful. Consumer sentiment. The University of Michigan's consumer sentiment study shows 67.2, which is the lowest that it's been since around 2011, which almost perfectly lines up with that 10-year cycle when recessions happen. This is a long way of saying, if we all believe that there's a recession, that's probably what's going to end up happening. And if we become defensive and start spending less money, and if corporations start hiring less and they start giving out less wage increases because they get more defensive and they get spooked that there's a recession coming, then it's bad news for everyone. It's kind of like what Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. And so this consumer sentiment, I'll say, contributes another 5% to the odds of a recession, bringing the grand total to 45%, and that's pretty serious. In the next 12 months, I estimate that the odds of a recession are about as good as a coin flip. Now, if a recession does happen though, here's what would happen next. Unemployment happens. I used to believe that unemployment was a forward-looking metric to help us predict when a recession would happen. Because if people are let go and they're losing their jobs, then obviously we're headed towards a recession. The logic makes sense. But that's not how it works. It's the reverse. Corporate profits have to come down first, and then people are let go. So a recession happens first, and then people lose their jobs. And if that's the case, I'm not going to be investing in stocks, I'm not going to be buying crypto, I'm not going to be buying NFTs, so the risk assets fall the hardest. Instead, I'm going to be buying food and paying my rent, and that's most people. And that's why waiting for asset prices to drop so we can buy the dip doesn't make sense, because there's no guarantee that your income will still be there to buy that dip. And that's why dollar cost averaging will always win. Now, this is especially true in the stock market, for example. The last 30 recessions have produced 16 positive stock markets and 14 negative ones. So a recession tells us nothing about stocks. When it comes to real estate, the game has completely changed, because even if rates go up, home values may not go down because of the high demand and the low supply, so a recession tells us nothing about the future of real estate. When it comes to crypto, that tells us nothing because Bitcoin has only been around since 2009 and there's not enough data. But what I do know is that the risk assets do the worst, because no one is going to want to put their money into an asset that goes up and down like crazy and gives them a heart attack in a time when they're not making that much money. That's why I'm not going to be investing more in a recession, I'm not going to invest less, I'm going to continue going at my same pace, because I think the real risk is not a recession, it's something called stagflation. Stagflation is a combination of three things. That's when employment, inflation, and the GDP are going in the wrong direction. When inflation's high, unemployment's high, and the GDP is low. And the last time we got this was in the 1970s, when everything was becoming more expensive, but wages couldn't keep up, which is kind of the situation we find ourselves in now. Except the difference is our wages are still growing strong. Our labor market is still strong. Our unemployment is relatively low, and our GDP hasn't dipped to the point where we should be worried yet. But it could happen. And if stagflation happens, the best investments during stagflation are cash flow producing assets, like dividend stocks, which most of my portfolio is either dividend stocks or index funds. They may not grow as fast, but they also don't fall as hard, which means I'll be less worried. I'll still be worried, just not as much. Especially if you smash the like button and share this video. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Go grab up to $250 worth of free Bitcoin with this BlockFi link right here. Grab your free stocks. All the links are down below, and then go track them automatically with the spreadsheet link down below in my Patreon. Love you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you back here on Monday and Friday, sometimes a Wednesday. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.